Text, copy, words, letters, characters, whatever you want to call it, it's everywhere in motion design. And Cavalry has some really magic and non-destructive ways to animate it. Today, I'll show you how I do it, from the basics down to really customized per character control. But really quick before we start, I do want to say a huge thank you. We just passed 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's honestly wild to me. And when I started this niche little Cavalry YouTube channel and this series, I didn't expect it to really take off the way that it has, but 1,000 of you proved me wrong. So genuinely, thank you so much. If you're getting something out of these, the biggest thing that you can do to help me is really just sticking to the end and hitting that subscribe button. And if you really love it, share it with your friends. Entice people around you to pick up Cavalry and give it a shot as well. Okay, let's get into it. Episode 1, we looked at duplicators. In episode 2, we wrapped up a rig in a really clean package with components. And if you haven't seen those, I really urge you to go check it out. The project file for everything that we're covering in those episodes as well as today is free in the description below. So give it a download. I'll be here waiting. So there's 3 major things that we'll be covering today: how strings work and what you can do with them, then how to animate text on and off screen in 2 ways: the manual way with Sub-Mesh, and then the quicker way with Auto-Animate. And before all that manual stuff scares anybody off, I'm going to show you how Cavalry really reads that stuff under the hood. Once that clicks, you'll be able to apply that same logic not to just text animation, but all of your work moving forward. You can take something that is maybe mundane and you need to repeat it on multiple instances, and Cavalry helps you speed that up so you do it once and you don't have to do it again. I promise you this will get way less intimidating. So, how does Cavalry read text? Well, every line contains words. Every word contains characters. And here's the kicker: each one of those has its own customizable controls. Cavalry calls these levels. Line is level 1, words is level 2, and characters is level 3. Remember those numbers because they will come in handy in a second. Let's put this into practice though. Cavalry has its own special window that really shows you how those submeshes are broken down. Let's see. So if I start adding a text shape, I've alt-clicked that one, got my Cavalry text, yay, YouTube. I can really unpack how that is put together. I come up here to Window, a beautiful panel called Mesh Explorer. I have everything broken down. I'm going to double click on these so that it's a little less confusing for you guys. Starting at level 0, we've got these numbers here. So level 0 is the whole text shape itself. It's everything, it's the top layer. We really can't do a whole lot with that. But as you can see, there's a child meshes of 3. 1, 2, 3, and they're all given the level of 1. Now, if you remember before, I said that lines are level 1. And if I double click into this, it doesn't show me a whole lot again. But if I double click into one of these, again, we can see that's each character. So this level 2 here must be the word level. It's hard to explain, but this one, Cavalry, this one is so. Double clicking, going down again, I've got the character control at level 3. For each character, they also have their own specific index. If I wanted to control this particular S, it's at level 3, index 0, and the O is level 3, index 1. There's something that Sub-Mesh doesn't necessarily tell you straight up, that 2 characters within this string of text can have the same numbers assigned to them as well. This so also gets the same index number. Level 3, index 0, level 3, index 1, and level 3, index 0, level 3, index 1. Well, that doesn't seem very unique, does it? Well, that's because Cavalry reads indices in 2 different ways. When we add a submesh to this text, we can see that I have an index mode. This index mode determines if behaviors or the way that I'm targeting the submesh is unique to itself, or whether the number that it's assigned is given by the parent that it sits underneath. So it's child index. What the Mesh Explorer is showing us is a child index. So yes, the S in So is sitting at level 3 with index of 0 for both of these, but it also has its own unique index number, which doesn't get brought up in the Mesh Explorer. We sort of have to figure that out. And I'll quickly just show you in a more of a visual way. So let's add a color to this shader. I'm going to shade it in red, and I'm going to apply some fall off to this, and I'll do some range fall off. The sub-mesh, I'll make sure that's on the right level. It's currently set to 3. That's level 3. And the range fall off will let me specify which index I want to target, or indices if I want to target multiple. The first index I want to target is the O, index 1. But that's not working here, is it? It's targeting the A. So if we come up here, level 3, index 1, well, that is correct, but they both are assigned that. Now, if I go back to my sub-mesh and change this to child index, there you go. That really clearly shows me that these two things can be true at once. This is the index 1 in level 3, but it's native, or it's in relation to the parent. By default, when you apply a sub-mesh on a text shape or any shape at all, it will set it to unique index, which is often a lot more helpful because I can cycle through this and eventually find where that O is. So it ends up being index 14, which isn't shown here. If you're working with a duplicator, you can turn on draw debug information. The numbers will kind of look like this, so it will clearly show you where the indexes are sitting, but that feature doesn't necessarily work with text or anything else if we're looking at the sub-mesh. Unfortunately, we do just have to sort of figure it out ourselves at this stage. But just know that there's 2 ways we can target these indices, whether it's the unique index, which means I'm only going to be targeting maybe one index, or I can always set that to a range if I want to as well, but it's its own unique index. It won't target any other index. If I want to target a pattern of indices, I can change it to child, and then that's where we're going to see these patterns occur. We're selecting every second character in every word. That's a bit complex, I know, but just know that in Cavalry, everything is assigned 0s and 1s, 2s, 3s. It all gets its own unique number. And if you find those unique numbers, then you can control them and apply specific animations to them. And this Mesh Explorer really helps us unpack what number and what index and what level everything is at. And I really do recommend you just typing in some text in Cavalry, looking at the Mesh Explorer and just seeing how those are divided up. It's something that you kind of need to play with a little bit more to really understand how these numbers are working. There's one gotcha though, it's not live. So any changes that you make within this text, changing it, come down here and you can see that ahahasa isn't added into here yet. So I need to click the update button. And once I do, it's added that in as a new word that it's recognizing within the sub-mesh, within the mesh, within the whole shape. So that's just something that's important to note. And this will all make sense as we continue through this video. But feel free to jump ahead or skip back to here if something's not making sense. It will all tie up together, I promise. So now let's look at strings. Strings are what the text says and how much of it that it shows. Again, let me drop in some text and I will say says and shows. So here's the thing, in Cavalry, strings can be manipulated in a non-destructive way. To do a simple text reveal on this text shape, I can just come down the bottom here. I've got a set of string manipulators, style behaviors, material behaviors, formatting inputs. A string manipulator is what we're going to look at today. Style behaviors are sort of just like applying specific font sizes or styles or different typeface. You might be wondering, well, why is that there when I could just do it up here? But the power with those is that if I apply a font size, I can choose which indice it is targeting. It could just be the first and last that I want to increase or decrease the size. I can also apply fall off and a bunch of other things to that. So that's pretty powerful. And then material behaviors lets me just apply like fill and stroke. I can apply shaders. I can again choose a specific indice that I want to apply that to, as well as any filters, and then formatting inputs. In the next episode, I think that will really come together and we'll get into that a little bit deeper. So going back to string manipulators, the one that I'm really interested in today is Resize String. And Resize String is just a really cool way to have your text type out and reveal itself. And look at that, there it goes. And I could take that one step further by adding a keyframe on that, moving forward, taking that to 100%. And there you go, simple type out. And because I have my alignment center, as it's typing out, it's keeping that center alignment, which is really nice. The cool thing about this as well is that I can change this to Word. So yeah, as it says, it can be Word. I can also change it to line or paragraph, depending on how much copy I have. And I can choose where it's revealing and not revealing from randomly. So if I wanted a bit more, I don't know, spontaneous, you can have it random as it's revealing, and it kind of creates sort of a jumbled look, which is really fun. Another really great thing about this as well is that I can continue to add more of these string manipulators. Another one that you probably could use a lot too is this transition string. When I apply it, it's already set up with the final string. So right now it's saying animate, the mode is set to percentage. And when I increase this from 0 to 100, it does exactly as you'd expect. I can change this text too, and I can then keyframe it again. So it types out and then transitions. But yeah, it's so easy to animate text on and have it transition and switch around. Super, super simple. And the best part about this is that the animation is living on the manipulator, not on the words. So you can change the copy and you keep the motion. These keyframes stay intact. I can change the text here and the animation is still happening. And I'm sure many of you've been in that position before where maybe a client has, I don't know, changed their mind 3 or 4 times on copy that they want. This way, you've got no problems. We don't have to reanimate anything. Happy clients, happy motion designers. And there's a whole bunch more within here too. It's like a shuffle string. So maybe after it's animated, I might want it to like then shuffle. I can do that. There's a different seed that I can try and shuffle between. I can also use a substring. If for any reason I want to just remove part of the string, I can do that. It's a little less robust. I wouldn't use this as a way to animate on really ever. I much prefer the Resize String. And now Sub-Mesh. That's a whole different thing. A Sub-Mesh will control how each piece moves, and you will get full control with the method that I'm about to show you now. This is the manual method. If I click on this text shape, I can come to deformers, and then if I click the plus, I can come down to Sub-Mesh. What this deformer does is it reads through the mesh in the same way that this Mesh Explorer is. I can talk to Cavalry and get it to control each level. So for this one, what's really nice is that Cavalry lets you easily change between the lines, words, or characters. Under the hood, it is going 1, 2, 3. Because it's already written here, you don't always have to remember those numbers, but it's always good to know how it's actually doing that. Or I could go custom and put in the values that I want, a custom range. In this example, we're going to go words. For this animation, I want to have the text like pop in from below. So I'll move forward 10 frame. This will be my end point. It's at 0, but at the start, I want it to move a -40 on the Y and then up to 0. Nice. Using easy, great script. I use it all the time. Link below. I can then apply some easing on that. I can then, my opacity, I want it to pop in. I'm going to shift this all forward. Nice. I want it to stagger in. So right now it's just like happening all at once and you can't see it, that it's like split it up into the levels. So to do that, I can come to time offset, and right clicking on time offset, I can add a behavior and a stagger. And if you've watched my previous videos, we'll stagger the animation. And if I set it to like a negative value, maybe -12, there we go. But the issue with this again is, like in previous videos, coming in the opposite direction. So if I click on the stagger, then click on this graph, I can flip the graph so that's actually coming in the way that I want. And what's really good about this is that I can then take this sub-mesh and say if I have like a small piece of copy, maybe at the bottom here, and I want it to have the same treatment, I can connect this sub-mesh into that small copy, connecting it as a deformer, and it gets the same treatment. And then whenever I change anything within this one deformer, it'll affect both animations, as you can see. But I could also duplicate this sub-mesh and it could be its own separate animation from the main hero animation, a small copy, and I could give it its own controls. But that's the beauty of Cavalry, everything connects together. And yeah, if I wanted to change it to characters, I could as well. I could add more animation to this. Maybe the scale increases as it comes in like that. Could add in a wobble on the rotation. Super easy to just do really custom things with your text. Sometimes you don't need all that control. You might just want text on screen super fast. Here it enters the room, auto-animate. If I select my text, come up to the shelf up here, this will automatically connect an auto-animate deformer to any shape. As you can see, it's already created a custom animation for me. Pretty nasty. I never like the one that it automatically applies, but we can change that. So on the side here, you can see that I've got currently set up to single process control. To start with, we have a drift happening where the text is coming from, really easy. By rotating this little 360 spinner, I can choose how much it's coming in by just on this directional value slider. Can also see that it's all coming in randomly, and it's kind of annoying me to show you. So if I come into timing, I've got time offset happening a -20, and the timing mode is on random. I can just have this on normal, which is a little bit easier for me to show you everything that's going on. I can also reverse this as well. It's all controlled from one set of keyframes, which is the progress slider up here. So from 0 to 100%. And then I can also have it swing and do all this rotation and wacky stuff. And yeah, you can create some pretty horrendous animations pretty quickly, but it gives you control. I can have it scale up or scale down, so choose where it's pivoting from, change the way that it's fading in. I can also just have it appear suddenly rather than having that fade. And again, I can choose if I want it to be by line, word, or characters. But yeah, that's Auto-Animate as a really quick way to animate your text on. I personally like to set it to precise progress controls, remove those keyframes and come to progress mode, change that to precise. Now what this is doing is, instead of giving me one single progress control like we had here, it gives me multiple. So for position, I have a slider going from 0 to 100%, and that is just letting me animate the position sliding in just by itself. My visibility mode set to appear, and say right now it's on 100% and I have it on 0. It's completely independent from the position, which I just prefer because I don't necessarily want everything animating from 0 to 100 on one slider. I like it to, you know, maybe pop in. There's a lot of offset happening now, so I can reduce that. And again, similar to when I've put in the stagger on the sub-mesh, this is essentially doing the same sort of thing. Animation time offset, putting it in as a negative value. It starts from 0 because that's where the keyframes are occurring, and the animation is occurring and being offset by 5 frames. More information on that, again, watch my previous video. So the judgment call on which to use and when. If you need nice text on screen right now, Auto-Animate is great. Auto-Animate also lets you create presets, as does the sub-mesh, but if I come to the little stars here, I can save a preset. If I really like this animation, I can do that, write it in, save it, and reuse it over multiple projects or multiple layers within my scene. Whereas sub-mesh, it's manual and bespoke. Maybe I have a specific motion in my head and I need that full control. I need to be able to control things with fall off. I really want to like grab specific words or characters from that string and animate them independently from everything else. A sub-mesh is going to help me do that. Auto-Animate uses the same ideas as a sub-mesh and it works on those same levels. It just hides those complexities and gives you those presets. Sort of like training wheels that happen to be really good. And I use it all the time. No shame. But it doesn't stop there. Sub-mesh and Auto-Animate doesn't just have to live on text alone. It can be applied to graphics, SVGs that you might be bringing in, really anything. For the purpose of this, I have just snatched the Cavalry logo from their website. So with this asset in my assets window, I can just drag the SVG into my scene. Don't need to do anything fancy, not using any plugins or Quiver or anything like that. Just be a normal asset layer. As you can see, it's loaded up there. I don't know. Oh, the by Canva thing is all in this SVG for some reason, but that's okay because with the power of sub-mesh, I can hide that. And using the Mesh Explorer is a really nice and easy way for me to understand where they're sitting. So right now, the actual logo is sitting at level 1, index 0. All these nasty bits are also sitting at level 1, index 1 to 7. So what I'm going to do is apply a sub-mesh, which is going to read through this mesh. And a nice little note as well, for this Mesh Explorer, if I want it to always be pinned, I can click this lock button, rename it to hide mesh. So the level that I want this sub-mesh to look at is level 1. We know that because these are all living on level 1 here. And look at the level mode. Right now it's set to custom, which is great. And I want the level starting at level 1 and ending at level 1. Then I want to affect the opacity of these. And to do that, right click and go add behavior. And if you've watched my previous videos, you'll know that a value node is really handy because it gives you a lot more control than just by entering a value as its own into this attribute here. It also gives me this fall off tab. And fall off is really great for this instance. I just want to target the index from 1 to 7. And fall off will let me do that. Clicking on fall off, I can add range fall off. And I can say from 1 to 7, but it's not appearing. Oh, because by default, everything's going to be set to 0. And I'm telling Cavalry with this range fall off 100%, I'm only targeting 1 to 7, which is the nasty bits here. I just want it to target 0. There we go. This takes a little bit to get your head around, but again, this is just one way that you can target certain indices within the levels of a mesh. And then with this same logic in place, I can now add another sub-mesh and start adding some actual animation. Level 2. So now it's targeting Cavalry and the icon. I don't know, I can have it pop in like before. I can add some offset, stagger that animation, -5. And I want it to pop in, so I can do that as well. And you can see in this SVG as well, the order in which I have these applied. So hide mesh is the base, and then on top of that, we have the animation. So I'm hiding everything before I apply the animation. Maybe I want to add more animation. I might want to target all these little triangles within the logo. I can do that as well. Add another sub-mesh. Maybe I want the scale of these to like pop in level 3. That's great. On level 3, the animation, it's all applying at once and it's all applying from the very center pivot, but we can change that. So icon animation, again, I'm going to apply a stagger to that. Maybe a -15 will work better on this one. Yucky. Firstly, I need to fix up where that pivot is coming from, and there's a great little option here, recalculate pivot. I can click that, and now it's just going to recalculate it all from the center. Woo! And I can control. Maybe they're coming in from that to there. Cavalry can come in a bit later, so let's increase that stagger between those. Something like that. But yeah, using these sub-meshes and treating them as separate tasks that they're doing. So we have the hide mesh, overall animation that's being applied on both the icon and the text, and then unique animation just being applied to the icon itself. I don't think they would like me animating their logo like this, but that's the power of Sub-Mesh. And the same sort of thing can be applied as well too. With like Auto-Animate, you can just keep stacking things on top of one another. That's disgusting, but you get what I mean. Say I have a unique design. I want all of these shapes to have the one animate in. I can easily do that by putting them into a group. We've got the group selected and come to Mesh Explorer. You can see that the Mesh Explorer doesn't really read what's happening inside. It's reading the group, but nothing inside of that. So to get more data and treat it as maybe an SVG, if I go Command period and type in custom shape, I can then input this group into that, hide that group, click on the custom shape, and now it's actually treating that whole thing underneath here as something that it can read the sub-mesh of. So I'll apply a sub-mesh, and I'm in this, hop in. They're all coming in at once, but using that same logic again. Time offset, apply a stagger. And looking at the Mesh Explorer, it's starting from the bottom and going its way up. I can change that. Using the graph again, flipping it, it's going in this order. I can rearrange these and it would then change the order in which they're appearing. But that's a really easy way to, again, using Sub-Mesh to create one custom animation and then applying that across a bunch of shapes. SVGs, text, primitive shapes, you name it. Sub-Meshes can work through it all, as well as Auto-Animate. Rather than wasting your time animating the same thing over and over again, animate it once, there you go. Super powerful. Chef's kiss. So that's episode 3, strings, manipulators, how Cavalry reads your meshes in the Sub-Mesh Explorer, and animating text on and off with Sub-Mesh or Auto-Animate. The next episode is a really big one, and it's something that we've been building towards with the past 3 episodes because it ties everything together. The duplicators from episode 1, the components from episode 2, and the text animation from this episode. You'll have everything you need to build the logo rig that is shown in the intro of my showreel. So subscribe and stay tuned for that next episode as I'm recording it as we speak. Which leads me to, what do you guys want to see next? Any specific part of the showreel intro that you want me to break down, or anything that's confusing you? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and your feedback and things that you get stuck on in Cavalry help me and help this channel grow. And again, thank you so much for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. The best way, again, is to stick around, subscribe, watch the video till the end, and share it with your friends. It really does help me keep motivated so that I can keep creating these videos and content for you guys. The project file is free in the description below, and buy me a coffee if you're feeling generous. Until I see you in the next one, bye!